everyone at New York Talk. You probably weren't expecting to see me doing the scouting report today. It's normally Matt's job because I'm normally in bed. But we have probably the most qualified individual, shall we say, for a scouting report in Mr. Jed Penberthy, who will be doing the commentary for BBC Radio Devon between Exeter and Rotherham United, which makes it even more gutting that I won't be there for the game. But Jed, welcome back to New York Talk. How are we?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me back. And I think it's a bit of a glowing reminder that I'm actually going to be commentating on City for the first time for BBC Devon. It's going to be quite an exciting time for me. I've been doing jobs here, there, and everywhere. I've been doing Scunthorpe. I've been doing Torquay, but this is my first time covering City, and I'm rather excited for it. And it couldn't come for a better fixture, really, for us as mates, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, mate, I'm so proud of you for, getting the City gig. Like you say, you've done various clubs, and I think you've done a little bit on, is it Exeter's Women on iFollow at times as well?
Yeah, I've commented on City before, whether that's Johnson's Paint Trophy. I'm doing the preseason friendly against Eastleigh as well. So that's going to be exciting for me. But this is the first time with the BBC. This is the first time. This is the first time going out on local radio.
Yeah, it should be an absolutely fantastic occasion. Should be more or less a full house as well for opening day. I think Rotherham have more or less sold out their allocation. And City's always well supported at home, so it should be a really rocking St James Park, shouldn't it?
Yeah, last season was a record breaking season really in terms of ticket sales. So uh, it's not the easiest ground to develop in terms of capacity. There's a rail track that runs alongside, so when you see it on the telly, there's only half a stand. So we do get mocked by that a little bit, but that is because the railway and makes it difficult to develop. But in terms of capacity last season, we were hitting over 6,000, 7,000 every week, and for an 8,500 seat stadium, that's is pretty grand fine.
Yeah, I mean, we decided to put a railway there. All right. But yeah, so talk to me about City's pre-season. How have you guys been going on, and who have you actually been playing against?
Well, six pre-season has been pretty formidable, really. Only one loss so far, and that was against Bristol City in a behind closed doors fixture. Um, Otherwise, it's a pre-season that is quite typical of City. We tend to play local teams around us because we like to bring in the local teams because they help us with our player development program. So we're always loaning out teams to Tiverton, to Weston-super-Mare, to Yeovil, and we want to give back to them in a way, knowing that they're going to get a capacity crowd for their pre-season friendlies away, so we can honour their commitment to us and get minutes in the tank. What I will say about pre-season is, compared to the other teams that I've seen and prepped for this season, it's heavy. It's been very match heavy this year.
Hmm.
I was at Torquay versus Plymouth last week, and both sides have only played four friendlies, but City have played six or seven now. And that's including trips down to Cornwall to play against Mousehole. So Tiverton we've played, Weston-super-Mare we've played, Yeovil was quite a high profile one. But Bristol City and another Championship club that evades me are the only two teams that have been higher than us. Oxford it was the only two teams that have been higher than us in the football pyramid. So in terms of pre-season, it's a little bit, you don't know where we are competitively. Certainly, match fitness is somewhere where we are strong, but are we tactically ready for the season? Because we haven't played the most testing opposition, and like I said, our final pre-season friendly is against Eastleigh. So uh, between now and the start of the season, can we get more work on the training ground? Can we get that training ground stuff to really click into gear? And we should be fine.
You're sounding quite a similar boat to Rotherham, to be fair. I mean, the only really testing opposition we've played was Sheffield United at home and Sheff Wednesday behind closed doors. but we seem very match fitness focused, and we're talking just before, like you say, you guys play Eastleigh and Rotherham are playing Doncaster in Richard Wood's testimonial. Um, but yeah, I still don't quite know how Rotherham are going to set up this season. So it sounds like it's more for both of us getting the match fitness in there and seeing who's going to be, the injury concerns and who's going to be the workhorse, and then do the tactics later. Which is quite an interesting approach because we play each other the first game of the season, so it's more going to be who's fitter, and we might end up playing cricket by the end of it. Who knows? But have any new signings caught your eye during the summer? Because I know you guys weren't as active as Rotherham in the opening stage of the window, because we signed Clark Harris at the end of May, which feels like 100 years ago now. But who's caught your eye in pre-season so far?
Well, what I will say is that we didn't really lose anyone in pre-season. When that first retained list came out, there was a huge core and chunk of our squad that we had retained. So the players that have left on their own terms. But in terms of that whole core squad, and going back to the tactics that we're saying for pre-season, it means that Gary Caldwell can have that kind of solidarity, knowing that the players that he's got around his first 11 know the system that he wants to play. There hasn't been any deviation in that kind of tactical style that City have been playing. But the signings that we have made have really bolstered that side. So we had Ryan Woods on loan last season from Hull City. And when it was announced that he joined us on a permanent, on a free, that was a huge relief to us because we had lost Ryan Trevitt and Luke Harris, who were also loan players last season for Premier League clubs. So what that does mean is that our midfield is looking very strong going into the season. Well, as strong as it was at the end of last season when we had a bit of a purple patch and really bolted up the table towards the end of last season. So Ryan Woods back in the side. We signed Josh Magennis, nice experienced striker up top. He's got 4 goals in pre-season. He's a big brute of a striker. He was at Wigan last year, and he's really added a new dynamic to our front line. Because last season we had Sonny Cox, who is a fantastic terrier little player. He's only 19. He's not as experienced as we needed for a striker, and we did have a bit of a striker problem towards last season. We brought in Admiral Musgrave from Luton, for instance, and he got injured, but the terms of the loan meant that he couldn't go back to Luton. So we couldn't loan in that extra player because we'd used our loan allocation because Admiral Musgrave was on the sideline. But Josh Magennis has the same sort of physicality as Admiral Musgrave. Josh Magennis is someone that does like to play on the centre half. He likes to drop in the middle of the centre halves and use his body to be able to spray it wide. He's looking like a really good signing. He's, like I say, he's got 4 goals in pre-season. He's looking quite sharp. We brought in Tristan Kramer from Brentford. He is what Gary Caldwell called his most important signing. He's the one that Gary Caldwell's wanted from the very start of the window. We haven't seen him yet, so we're probably likely to see him in the final pre-season friendly against Eastleigh, but he adds another bit of dynamism to the team. We've had other players in, like Jay Bird, who's settled in quite nicely, although he's been a little bit injured. But otherwise, signing-wise, like you said, we haven't influxed our team with a load of brand new signings, but what we have done is we've strengthened the areas where we just needed to shore up, and I think that's something that's really gone well. And we've had a lot of players back from injury. So we had Jack Fitzwater at the end of last season. He missed the end of last season. He's come into pre-season and he's looked solid at the back. Joe Whitworth, a new goalkeeper. City have this kind of style of goalkeeping where we like to loan from above. So, for instance, in the past, we've had Cam Dawson loaned in from Sheffield Wednesday. We brought in Jamal Blackman on a 1-year contract because he wanted to go on and do bigger and better things, but he ended up at Burton. And last season we brought in Vil Sinisalo, and Sinisalo came from Aston Villa, and he was absolutely fantastic, brilliant player, and he's earned himself a move to Celtic on the back of that. So we're hoping from Joe Whitworth. He's not as tall in stature as Sinisalo or Dawson, but he's got that reach. He's got that kind of technicality that we want to play from the back, and that's what Joe Whitworth brings to the side as well.
Yeah, I've just mentioned Cam Dawson there. We seem to have a thing of signing former Exeter players at the minute. I mean, in the past we've had 𝐁𝐞𝐬𝐭 𝐂𝐥𝐮𝐂. We signed Sam Nombe directly from you guys. And then there's Dawson and Zach Jules as well. So, I suppose Exeter's more in the position to tell us how Cam Dawson will do in League One. Because let's face it, we're not going to get much out of the Chef Wednesday fans being a Rotherham podcast, are we? So just tell me a little bit about Cam Dawson, and we've sort of seen that he's a very vocal goalkeeper. He commands his 6 yard box really well. But in your opinion, do you think he is starting goalkeeper material in terms of the slightly more experienced Dylan Phillips?
Well, he's a championship level goalkeeper without any shadow of a doubt. We saw that when he was playing for us when we were in League Two. So he was our goalkeeper in our promotion season when he was in League Two. And not only is he that kind of like vocal presence, he is such a fantastic shot stopper that when he rejected his contract from Sheffield Wednesday at the end of last season, it was announced in the retain list that he'd been offered another extension on that Wednesday contract. But when he turned that down, I can imagine that there were a number of clubs that wanted his signature. Now, when he was at us, it was quite clear that his wage demands were too high. So as much as he loved playing down here, he was always quite honest to say that he will go where they can meet his wage demands. So going to Rotherham is a fantastic signing for you and for him as well, because he doesn't have to relocate. So his family are still up there. He doesn't have to take a massive drop of wages in consideration to if he'd gone elsewhere. And really, like as a shot stopper, as a goalkeeper, he is a class above. Really, he is formidable at penalty saves. He is, like you say, formidable at commanding his area. His kicking is good. He's as a shot stopper, as a one-on-one stopper, you always feel that sense of safety. And I know that in the past, especially at City, we haven't had that kind of like safety as a goalkeeper, where a striker is running through one-on-one and you're just like, oh, here we go, we're going to concede. But when Dawson was in goal, we always had that sense of, you know what, he is going to stick out his 20-foot long legs and tip it and stick it around the post. And that was the same with Vil Sinisalo last season as well. They're very similar goalkeepers in that sense. And if Sinisalo can bump up to Celtic, and I would say on a par, they were par level goalkeepers, then Cam Dawson as a player is a class above. And what I will say about Cam Dawson as a person, he is a class above as well. Because during that promotion season, I had the privilege of working for City and got quite close to Cam. And he's such a lovely bloke. He's such a lovely bloke. He really kind of encapsulates everything. He brings in a lot of enthusiasm. He brings in a lot of banter. He brings in a lot of fun stuff around the training ground. And what he does on the pitch is fantastic for the morale. But what he does off the pitch is even better for the morale of that changing room. And that's why Cam Dawson is a fantastic signing for you guys.
It sounds like a perfect replacement for Victor Johansson, to be fair. I think we've done very well with that one. So we'll move on to Zach Jules, who strikes me as a brick outhouse sort of defender. I've not seen too much of him in pre-season, just from like the time that we signed him and just having a rotation around the back line a little bit. But how did he do for you guys, and what can we expect from him in competitive games?
Again, it was a sense of Zach Jules was a good signing for us at that time. He brought that kind of like strength at the back. He gained that resolve at the back. So he's played at the higher levels. He's got experience at that higher levels, and what he does do is command that back line quite well. So at City, when we had that kind of injury problem, he was shifting from either centre back or to the wide left. So he's very versatile in that sense. He's a tall figure. He's a good tackler of the ball. He's a good passer of the ball. And when the time came at the end of this season, he had the offer of the table to say, look, we can trigger your extension. You can trigger your extension if you want to stay, but we will not stop if you want to go somewhere where you are going to earn a little bit more money. You are going to play in a more competitive team at the top of the table. And I think we're very honest with our transfer policy at City, that we were not stopping any player's way if they want to move up a level. I mean, you can say on paper it's a little bit frustrating that he's gone to another League One team, but a League One team that I think most pundits would suggest are going to be up the upper echelons of the league. Whether that is going for a title or whether that is pushing for those autos or playoff places. So 𝐁𝐤𝐿 will fit nicely into a side. He's a good centre half. If he's not starting every week, he's certainly a fantastic, good rotation option.
Brilliant stuff. And we talked a little bit last season about Sam Nombe, and I remember you saying to us, if you played him in the right position, he'll do really well for you. But we never seem to do that.
It is frustrating to see Sam Nombe's development at Rotherham. Actually, as a City fan who knows him, who loves him, I think the move was right for him at the time. I do think the move was right for him at the time. It's a little bit frustrating to see how he's developed there. Whether that was because maybe Matt Taylor did not have the players around him to help him benefit, or whether that was a tactical style, or whether that was Sam on the training ground not trying to get as much from the game as he wanted to. But like Sam Nombe is such a strong mentality that he will keep on plugging away. He will keep trying and trying and trying. And like I said in that chat with you last season, if he does get a run of goals, he will keep going. But last season, for whatever reason, he didn't quite get that run of goals, did he?
No, not really. But then Steve Evans' first home game, he scores an absolute corker against Cardiff. So I don't know, maybe they'll gel together. But we've sort of tipped him for big things this season. I think if we hadn't assigned Clark Harris, everyone would have picked Sam Nombe as top goal scorer. Funnily enough, he's been wearing the number 8 shirt in pre-season. Now, I know they say don't look into pre-season too much, but if he's in a number 8 position, I'd much rather see him as a 10, or, like if Jordan Hughes was number 10 in that position, regardless of number. We touched briefly on how Exeter's going to set up against us, and it sounds like it's been a dabble of here, there, and everywhere so far. But how does the manager normally set up his team? What's his preferred formation and playing style?
Yes, it's quite regimented for the last 4 seasons, and for the last 2 managers, we've certainly set up with a strong back three, with overlapping wing backs, and that seems to be the way that we want to play, and it's definitely the way that Caldwell wants to play. He's a very passing, tactical manager. He likes to emphasise playing on that wing and being able to get the ball into what he calls the scoring zone, one of these technical terms which just means the penalty area. But he certainly likes to play through the lines. He certainly likes his technical players. Last season we had Tom Carroll. This season we've got Reece Cole and Ryan Woods. They're definitely players that can get on the half turn and either spray it wide or ping it into the 2 strikers. So there's a certain flair about the way that City like to play now. Certainly exciting from an attacking point of view, but we're also set up in a way where we look defensively strong at times. We've seen in pre-season, especially against that Torquay side where we drew 2-2, having led 2-0, that that there can be frailties there, but this is what pre-season is for. He said after the game, quite frank, that it was not good enough. We did play 2 games that day with 2 different teams, but he said it just was not good enough. So I don't think we have seen our strongest starting 11 in pre-season yet. It's been very mixed sides. We've had a lot of young players coming through that have really shone in pre-season. We got players like 𝐁𝐞𝐬𝐭 𝐂𝐥𝐮𝐿 who came on against Yeovil and he stole the show. And if that's against a National League side, that's a really good loan for him if he can get that. Kieran Wilson as well. He's played well. I went to a couple of academy pre-seasons as well, down at Crediton, for example, and that was a team full of academy graduates, and they played Crediton off the park. So it's certainly what that shows to me is that right through the system, from the first team to the 23s to the 18s, that there is certainly an ethos to the way that we want to play. And I think that regardless of the starting 11, what comes up against Rotherham, I think that we know how they're going to play. Just are they the right 11 to play against a team like Rotherham?
And finally, give us a score prediction. How do you think it's all going to be decided come, shall we say, 7 o'clock on Saturday? Because it's a very annoying kick-off time, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think that's another thing that we could touch upon slightly is the fact that Sky have got this new deal with the EFL, and it is changing our kickoff times a lot. And whether that, I don't think that will affect preparation too much. I mean, a later kickoff for the first game of the season could be quite handy, but we've got games later on in the season where we're playing Shrewsbury on a Thursday night. We've got to travel to Shrewsbury on a Thursday night, so because of Sky, thank you very much. But going into Saturday's game, I want my voice to be able to be used throughout the season. So if it's a 4-4, then I'm not going to be happy for my larynxes. But no, I think it'll be a tight game. I don't like putting a score prediction in, but I think it's going to be a draw. I think the conversation that we've had suggests that both teams are going to counteract each other in the way that in the styles that they play. So I think a draw will suffice. I think City will be happier with a draw after the first game of the season.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think, like you say, with Exeter pushing it wide and getting balls into the box, it sounds similar to how Rotherham have set up so far. I think it's going to be a little bit cagey with it being first game of the season. I think it'll probably come down to set pieces because we haven't been the best with set pieces, especially against Grimsby, because I think we conceded twice from set pieces. So if you guys can disrupt that, then we'll be in all sorts of bother. But at the same time, if you guys don't know your strongest back line yet, we might be able to nip in behind and, possibly get something. So I might go for a 1-1 draw. I think that sounds more or less in line with what you're saying.
I'm glad we agree.
Yes, agree on few things, but that one we do. But yeah, thank you very much for the chat, Jed, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the season, not just Exeter City wise, but also BBC Radio Devon wise as well. So thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks for having me on.